Hello everyone, welcome to my 1cc commentary and gameplay guide for those looking to get the clear of Andro Dunos 2, a game that has been getting a lot of attention recently, and for good reason. I think it is an excellent shmup. Initially when I set out to get the clear, I figured it would take me probably a day or two. As most sort of modern indie shmups, it doesn't take me too long to get the arcade difficulty clear. But to my surprise, it actually took me 3 or 4 days of practice and about 22 hours in total to finally get that clear, mostly because of the way the difficulty curve of the game works, and also because I wasn't fully aware of some of the gameplay mechanics that end up being kind of crucial to getting the 1cc. So in this video, I'm going to try my best to give you a rundown of what you need to know as far as strategy, beyond just the basics of, shooting, don't get hit, all that sort of stuff. So for those who are interested in a review of the game, I definitely recommend both Studio Mudprints and Shmup Junkie. Both of them covered the game in their reviews. I was thinking about doing one myself, but I thought, well, they basically covered most of it, so why don't I do something a little bit different and give a in-depth gameplay guide, even though that probably will be a little less popular than a straight-up review. But I do think there's some important information I can pass on. So let's talk about the way the basic systems of the game work as far as your power-ups and your weapons, because that's sort of the bread and butter of the combat of the game. So the way it works is you see these little blue orbs I'm collecting. They are your score items, but they also are sort of pseudo power-up items, because at the end of the stage you cash them out and you can use them to level up your weapons. Reminds me quite a bit of Thunder Force, actually, the weapon system. I don't think the power-up works the same as in Thunder Force 4, but the idea of having these multiple weapons you can swap through like you're playing Mega Man or something, very reminiscent of that. And I do know there is a original version of this game, and I'm sure it has its ties to that as well, but how many of you are honestly aware of Andro Dunos before this game came out? I had no idea what it was. It's kind of funny, in my opinion, to make a sequel of a game so obscure that your sequel is probably going to be more known than the source material. But maybe the reason for that is they just were a big fan of the original's game design, and also this cute little ship. One of my favorite aspects of the game is the beautiful sprite work and detailing. I like this Neo Geo style, and I do believe it is actually coming out on the Dreamcast or something, so it's something that could absolutely pass as a classic shmup, though there are hints of some modern design in there that kind of give it away. But nevertheless, I think visually it could absolutely pass as something that came out in the Dreamcast Neo Geo era. The sprite work is definitely quality enough, and I love the ship sprite. A lot of the artwork in the game, in my opinion, is sort of borderline cute 'em up. I feel like it is one step away from going into the parodious direction, but not quite. I like the balance a lot, and that ship sprite is one of my favorite ones I've seen in a long time. So here I am, I'm cashing in those blue orbs, and you can see I'm leveling up. If you collect every blue orb in the stage, you get 30, and then you can see at the bottom there it says level up 1, level up 2. You see the 2, and there's that missing third slot. So if you get all 30, which I do manage to do in most of my runs, on the first stage at least, you get 3 level up points. But since you got 29, you just get 2, and then if you get 10, you just get 1. The way that works. But outside of the leveling up via the blue orbs, you also can level up using the level up items, I guess you call them, power-up items. And they're dropped by the carrier ships, and what you have equipped is what will get leveled up. When I first was playing the game, for some reason I got it in my head that it has a sort of Radiant Silvergun style level up system, and the way that works in Radiant Silvergun is by using the weapon is actually how you level it up. I think it was just an old habit from playing Radiant Silvergun, so I kept doing the dumb thing of using these low powered weapons in the stages and trying to level them up that way. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is just swap over to the weapon you need, like I did right there, right before you collect it. And then you can go back to using the stronger leveled up weapons that you're using. I would say one of the key skills of this game that is pretty unique, and it reminds me a little bit of playing Garega, is you need to really understand the shot swapping mechanic. and you need to be able to swap between the shot types very quickly and intuitively. So you basically need to memorize how many button presses are between the shot types, because that's going to really come in handy in the later stages and in the boss fights. Because the way that works, I'll get to the core meat of the mechanic now, is you have 3 unique aspects of each shot type. Of course, the shot pattern itself, then it's super. I'm just going to call it super. I don't remember what the in-game term for it is, but it's super basically. Where, here I'm doing it now, where you do this powered up attack, and each shot type has a different style of attack that's useful in different situations and has different properties. And then the third aspect of the shot type that's a little less obvious until you play the game a lot is your shield option thing, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's like the R-type, you have that option that sits out in front of you and blocks stuff. Well, all the shot types, it's an item you can collect, and all the shot types have it in different formations. So the laser forward shot type has it in front of you, which is incredibly useful, as you see me doing there. Then when you swap to the blade attack, the spread blade attack, it's above and below you. And then when you swap to the back attack, it's behind you, which is really useful in some situations. And then the green laser, which is my least used weapon, it rolls around you. All of them, there it is doing that, see? So that can come in handy a lot for just dealing with different boss patterns and different enemy formations. And the game is very explicitly designed for this. I think you probably could clear the game using one shot type, the forward laser shot. You probably could, but you're going to have a hell of a time in certain sections because it's just made for you to use either the back shot or other shot type. If I were to rank the shot types in terms of usefulness, though, it's actually pretty easy, at least in my 1cc. So the most useful shot type for me was the blue forward shot that you see me using here. It's almost good all the time. There's some situations where you don't really want to use it, but it's just very good overall because it does a ton of damage. Its shields are right in front of you, so you're blocking a lot of patterns and blocking a lot of sticky things with the shields sitting in front of you. Though they do wear out, that is a bit of a drawback of them. You know, they can only take so many hits. And then the other thing about it is it has a very good super shot. And the way the super shot works is you use the, fire button, the super shot fire button, and they actually bullet cancel most things. It won't cancel beams, but pretty much any bullet it will cancel. And that's the best panic option, in my opinion, in the game. So this green laser that you saw me using there, I would say in overall utility... Oh, sorry. No, I'm using the spread shot. But, again, ranking them, number 1 will be the forward blue shot here, just because the damage output. The missiles are also really good. The super is really good. You use it primarily in all the boss fights. And then the second best one, in my opinion, is the spread blade shot. It also has a very, very good super attack. The above and below you shields are surprisingly useful in a lot of spots. And of course, the main thing is it just covers the screen and puts out a good amount of damage with its spread shot. It's underpowered there because I kind of held off upgrading it. Because what I found is basically the higher tier weapons in my book are easier to use and easier to upgrade in the stages. So what you'll see me doing is the forward shot I upgrade naturally by picking up items as I'm playing along. Same thing with the spread shot. But the back shot, here's a usage of the back shot. See, most of the back shot usages are very specifically set up where you just need to know, okay, they're flying in from behind. Now we use the back shot. But the back shot and the green laser actually don't really use in stages all that often. So I usually upgrade those just using the upgrades at the end of the stage. And if you're playing the game for score, it'd be interesting to see someone play this for score because you probably would actually use just one shot type throughout the whole thing, scoring-wise, would be my assumption if you're trying to optimize the game. Because when you fully max out the shot level, as you see there's shot levels and it ends up at 7, you get bonus points for collecting the rest of the power-ups, extra power-up items when you're fully upgraded. Even if your other shots aren't fully upgraded, it doesn't automatically upgrade them for you. So you can kind of min-max it that way. So I would assume if you're playing for score, what you would do is, of course, memorize all the blue orb routes, because those directly translate into points. And then you would probably use the spread fire and just min-max the spread fire. Because even though the spread fire isn't either the forward shot or the spread fire, I could see it going either way. Probably the spread fire, though, because you might need it to get all the orbs. And then you just use that throughout the whole game. And then at the end, instead of upgrading your weapons, you can actually just cash out your upgrade points for straight up score points. So I think that would probably be the meta of scoring in this game. That's just a guess, though, because there's no online leaderboards, which is, I think, a drawback of the game, and why I think it isn't perfect release, because I do think it needs online leaderboards. I think there aren't any. I wasn't seeing any, but my Switch doesn't. I don't do online on my Switch, so who knows? Maybe they are on there. Because I deactivate it because I have to be very careful with the online on my Switch. And then, let's talk a bit about. So that's the basics of the weapon system. But there's a technique that I need to let you know about that's super important for when you're going for the 1cc. And it's not a technique I picked up on until literally the last day of going for attempts. And then I realized, oh, okay, this makes a big difference. So in my first day's attempts of the game, I was getting wrecked in the stages and in the boss fights pretty heavily because I was overusing the super attack, right? Like I was using there. I was using it a bunch because I kind of assumed the game wanted you to use it a bunch, and it kind of felt like the patterns wanted you to use it. So I was using it a bunch. But then the cooldown on that super attack is so heavy and long that I was realizing, wait a minute, I'm doing less damage and doing less screen control using the supers than not using the supers. So then I got the opinion that this mechanic is busted and unbalanced, so I stopped using it. So day 2 and 3 of going for the 1cc, I just stopped using the supers, except in the end of a pattern that I knew would end up with a long cancel where I'd have enough time to recharge. Because after you use the super, not only do you need to recharge, but the firepower of your main shot actually goes down. And you're just using a little pea shooter. It sucks in boss fights, it sucks in the stage. So I thought, okay, this mechanic is kind of unbalanced and shitty, it's better not to use it. And I got pretty close to clearing the game without actually using the super mechanic. But then, on my last day, on accident, I discovered, and I'm sure some reviews mention this and I may have missed it, I discovered if you switch your weapon type, your weapon types will still be fully powered outside the one you just used. For example, I'm going to use my super here, and then there's a bit of a lock-in period, but the lock-in period isn't that long, and then once you break the lock-in period, you can switch to another shot type. So I should use my super here in a moment. Maybe I don't. Maybe I hold off on it. But next time I do my super, I'll point it out, where I'll use it, and then after I use it, I'll immediately swap to a different weapon type. And I usually sort of plan out what types I'm going to swap to. So for instance, with this ship, I usually like to swap to the forward shot. So there we go. Okay, this bit here, one thing that I am a bit critical of this game of, that I do realize is an old school shmup thing, and so old school shmup fans will defend this aspect of the game design. But the game has quite a few patterns and quite a few moments, especially in this stage specifically, where you just kind of need to know what's going to happen, otherwise you're going to die. Because it has these sort of cheap spawns and cheap moments where you can't really do much, or you just get surprise attacked. I'll point out the bad ones. The first one, though, was that fish, where the first time I was playing and it was shooting those icicles up, I was like, okay, I got this figured out. And then its tail just flies up and smacks me. I was like, oh, okay. There's a lot of moments like that, especially with the boss fights, and I'll point those out, where the bosses will just like ram you all of a sudden or do these really random attack patterns that I think should have been a little bit better telegraphed. But I think the most egregious example of this is coming up, where there's these jellyfish that just spawn on top of you, and unless you know they're gonna spawn on top of you, you're gonna just die, because there's no telegraphing them at all. Here they come. So I know that they're coming, so I'm gonna pull to the back. But if I don't know they're coming, I got hit every time until I realized they're there, right there. So that guy, they just drop right on top of you. And this Switch version, I think, has a bit of a glitch where their tails aren't on screen or something, because there's like a hitbox underneath them that you can't quite see. And I think remember Shmup Junkie mentioning that there's some kind of glitch where their tails aren't rendered or something like that on the Switch version specifically, not the Steam version. But there's quite a few moments like that in the game where things just kind of spawn on top of you until you know that they're going to come, or bosses will just ram you unless you know they're going to ram you. And in fact, I was one death away from getting my first 1cc before this run, where I was on basically the last pattern of the boss, and I forgot that it has this random ram pattern right at the end. So I lost because the boss just rammed me right at the end. That was pretty brutal. So speaking of the level design and game design, I think this game is very excellently made. I think if you are a fan of R-Type or Blazing Star, any of those 32-bit, 16-bit, Thunder Force as well, style horizontal shmups, old school, this is going to be right up your alley, and it feels like a pretty faithful gameplay continuation of that style of shmup. So it's pretty impressive, and probably one of the better 2D horizontal shmups I've played in a very long time. I think this is a bit of a running theme on my channel, but I kind of have to continue it because most people just recognize R-Type Final 2 for some reason. I think it is clearly a lot better game than R-Type Final 2. And I think, you know, some people don't agree with me on this with some of my other assessments where I thought Shield Maid was better than R-Type Final 2. But I think in the case of this game, even if you're the biggest R-Type fan in the world, you have to admit that this game is much better than R-Type Final 2 gameplay-wise. The boss fights are very good. The stage design, for the most part, is really solid. It's a very fun game. I played it for 22 hours, and if it wasn't a well-made shmup, content or no content, I'm not going to sit and play it for 22 hours to get the clear. So I had a lot of fun with it. And it was one of those shmups where even though it was frustrating me and pissing me off, I kept playing. That death really pissed me off. I have a very good run, by the way. This is, of course I clear, but even up to the clear, this is my best run. Because sometimes when you get a clearing run, you can have kind of an ugly mid-game or early game even, but you're able to pull it out at the end. That's actually a lot of my clears on this channel. But this one is like my most textbook run. Outside of that stupid death there, I pretty much play perfectly through most of the stages, if I remember correctly. And there's a lot of nasty little traps. And even though this game doesn't have Gradius Syndrome, where you lose all your power-ups or anything like that, it has very forgiving death power-up loss, which is a modern touch, absolutely. None of the other old school shmups are as kind as this game is. And I appreciate that, honestly. I appreciate that the game doesn't Gradius Syndrome you. But even with that being said, it does still have a bit of a momentum to it, where I was getting a lot of chain deaths, where if I'd die once, I'd get off route, and then I'd end up dying again, or, you know, that tends to happen in shmups, especially old school ones. So this stage is very memorization heavy. So when you first play it, you're probably going to die like 6 times to just random things that you don't expect. Like this, watch this. Unless you know what this guy's going to do, you're going to get killed. He's just going to... What? Yeah. Like, yeah, of course, even if you anticipate that he's going to shoot that pattern, because you can kind of see it winding up, the fact that he just drops downward like that, unless you know he's going to do it, that's going to catch you. There's all kinds of stuff like that. I do like this little mini-map that they pull up. That's a really nice touch. I don't know if other shmups have done that. I assume they have. It reminds me of, like, I think there's a Sonic stage that does something like that, where even the first time playing, you know where the walls are going to appear and everything. I think that's a really smart idea. So I really appreciated that. I think more shmups, when they have that sort of thing, should try to give you a little bit of a forewarning to what's coming up ahead, rather than just punishing you purely through memorization. But here we go, like these guys spawning behind you. One thing that can get a little bit frustrating with the game is sometimes I do appreciate the visual presentation of having things spawn in the background, and it can work for gameplay in a lot of occasions. But sometimes it's a little bit unclear when things are in the foreground or when they are in the background. These past things have been pretty good, but in some of the later stages, it is actually pretty hard to tell when something actually enters the foreground or the background. Oh, I forgot to mention when I was talking about the ship types, even though I'm not a huge fan of that rolling green laser for its shot, its super is hella good. Its super is very good, not for boss fights, but for stage, because it's just this massive panic shield that goes around you and kills all the popcorn enemies and stuff. It's a great panic button. It takes a little bit longer to wind up than the blue shot super, at least it feels that way to me. And that one bullet cancels. So I tend to use that more as a panic option, but there's times where you get absolutely surrounded by things, like I did there. And if you can just swap over to green and get that rolling attack around you, that's a really good way to go. This is one of my favorite boss fights of the game. You can destroy that gun down there for a little bit weakened firepower from it, but it will continue to fire at you. So if you're just playing strictly for survival, I would recommend ignoring the gun, because you're going to sit through a lot more patterns trying to kill it, and not for a really big payoff as far as making the fight safer. I think it's much safer just to speed kill the damn thing, basically. So pretty soon you just want to hold back there. That forward shield on this shot type is doing a lot of work, and then the back shield here. This boss fight is one of the main reasons why you want to have this shot type upgraded. At first I was trying to really min-max this, and like I didn't upgrade the other shot types outside of the blue forward and the spread shot. But what I found was it's probably a good idea for survival to upgrade those other shot types, even though you don't use them that much. Because when you're swapping between shot types, sometimes you'll get stuck in the wrong shot type. And it's one thing to get stuck in the wrong shot type when it's fully powered up, but it's a whole nother thing when you get stuck in the wrong shot type and it's like level 1, and then you just instantly get killed in the later stages. So as a little bit of insurance, I like to upgrade those type. But you can see there the 5,000 points at the bottom. If you're playing for score, you can just cash those out for points. The way the extends work is it's like every... I'm not very good at reading digits, but you know, the 4 every 2, right? Or so. But it's kind of weird because I think you get an extend at 1, and then you get an extend at 4, it seems like, and then you get an extend at 5.5 or somewhere in there. So it's kind of, I'm not exactly sure. I think the options will probably say where the extends are, but it's just kind of funny. I could never quite pin down where the extends were, but basically if you get up to 6, then you get all the extend, unless maybe there's one at 8 or higher. So I forgot to mention it earlier, but there's some stages in this game that remind me a bit of Axelay. So that water stage definitely reminds me of an Axelay stage, and then this reminds me of the final stage in Axelay with the carrier ships and everything. I don't know if there's any sort of connection there, but I can't help but point that out. Like this carrier ship here, there's a pattern and moment just like this in Axelay, and also just the design of the stage is very reminiscent of the final stage in Axelay. So I wonder if there's a bit of inspiration there, or maybe that's just a common trope among old school shmups and they all sort of do it, and I just recognize Axelay because I play it more than other old school shmups. So right there, that pattern is very difficult unless you have a nice strong back shot set up there. Some of the scariest points in the run are not the enemies, but trying to collect those blue orbs when they're really close to the walls, because the walls do damage you. You know, it's old school. It's not like Zero Ranger where you can grind up against them. They'll damage you. So here we go into the boss rush here. This is one of the main choke points of the run, I would say. The thing about the 1cc that was very interesting and why I was having so much trouble is it's one of those shmups where the difficulty in a lot of the game isn't like these walls of crazy patterns that you can't get past. The difficulty a lot of the time is just attrition. Just the game being long, having kind of this slower pace to it, and just wearing you down and nicking you, chipping away at you. So some runs I'd come in like this one, fully extended. Other runs I'd come in with like one extend, just because you take some random hits here and there. And then this is where the difficulty wall of the game begins, basically. And so I probably could clear the game with one extend at this point, but it would be pretty damn tough. Because the way the game works is the first 3 stages are really easy outside of getting clipped by things. 4 and 5 aren't all that hard when you route them. And then, or I guess 4. And then stage 5, this stage isn't too bad actually until the very end. To the final boss here, where that's when you start to really get challenged and can take some damage. Everything other than that is, again, just sort of knowing the game. Because when you play the game for the first time, you're going to get wrecked on each stage because it's pretty memorization heavy for what's going to happen. Unless you're, I guess, maybe super experienced with old school shmup. Like, here we go. There's patterns on these bosses where, like, they'll just ram you and stuff. So you just have to... one rule is just assume the boss is going to ram you if it holds still. Just assume it. It might not, but every boss, I'm pretty sure, has a ram pattern. There it goes. Yeah, just... There he comes. Just be prepared. Whenever they're holding still or anything like... Or in some kind of phase transition. So here we go. The final... Oh, no. Forgot about this one. This one is actually really easy if you know what to do. And what you need to do is you need to focus on destroying these little bombs before they hit the back. Because once they hit the back, they have this massive hitbox and it's going to cause you a problem. So you're actually focusing on taking out those missiles. Just focusing on them one at half at a time. So you focus on the first half, on that first wave. And then you focus on the bottom half, the second wave. Like, just focus on them and that gun. Keep the fire up, power up. You'll destroy them. And then it'll do one more wave here. Just sit at the bottom, speed kill the things that spawn out. Hold still, nothing's gonna hurt you here. You can crawl down if you want. Now you can focus on the center and get the kill. That pattern is not hard to dodge at all. It's only hard to dodge if you're trying to fight those missiles flying at you at the same time. That's why you just focus on them one at a time. Here we go. One of the harder boss fights in the game is this satellite thing. And the reason for it is it just has some nasty patterns up its sleeve. So these patterns here aren't too bad when you know what to do. But upcoming is this purple beam attack. And unless you know what's coming and unless you know what it's going to do, you will die to it. Guaranteed. So here it comes. You have to know what's coming. You have to go up and around like this. And trying to dodge it without knowing the setup is very, very difficult. And then this one, you want to slowly pull backwards. Fire away, super, there we go. Now we got to switch your shot type. There we go, while that recovers. Spread shot's pretty good. And then see that little cycle that worked. This first phase isn't too bad once you know about that purple beam attack. That's what's going to give you trouble. Second phase can get you trouble in a few places. So the first one here is this blue wall thing. You want to sort of... I kind of did that badly, but I was able to pull through. You actually want to start on the right side and pull to the left, because you don't want to be on the right side at the end of the pattern, because the satellite will just land on top of you and kill you. And it comes much sooner than you would think. Watching the replay, it seems obvious, but when you're playing, it's actually really sudden. That pattern there is tricky. I think what the strategy I ended up coming up with is using the spread shot. Yeah, and then swapping over. Here we go, up and around, up and around. Okay, we're doing really well. This pattern here is tricky because you have to cross over these beams, and they have a surprisingly long time on the screen. And then you need to pull to the left side. If you go to the right, you're dead because the satellite will fly up to the right and kill you. You have to know to go on the left side. A lot of stuff like that with these boss fights. You just need to know what they're going to do. Otherwise, you're going to get destroyed by them. That bottom shield doing a lot of work for me. That's one reason why I like the spread shot for that pattern, because that pattern there can get you quite a bit. Then he's gonna do this again. You can shoot and damage the bottom. I don't know if it does much for you. There we go. That time I did it correctly, because you want to end very solidly on the left side so you don't get rammed. Firing the super. There we go. We got him. No deaths on that. So I'm looking very confident here. But it could all be pulled away, because the final boss and the sort of final stage can really kicks up the difficulty and get you in some nasty situations. And it's a bit momentum based, because if there's certain sections where if you die in them, you're gonna have a bitch of a time because you lose your shield prematurely, and that shield really comes in handy. And I think I lose my shield prematurely every single time. I don't think I was ever able to hold on to the damn thing. But I have a good amount of extends, sitting on 4, and I should get another one, but I can't quite remember if I do. Because, like I said, I can't quite remember the extend number. I don't know if... I guess we'll just keep an eye on it and see. So these guys, you got to be careful, because they come in from the back, but then they open their wings, and those wings can damage you. So swap over to laser immediately, as soon as it lets me. There we go. And then I'm playing laser and I'm letting it recharge, and then once it's recharged we can swap back to it, because the spread shot's definitely the way to go in this section here. Use the spread super, and then I'm going to swap back to laser. There we are. Focusing down on the bottom, using that front shield. Don't be afraid to use that shield, because you're really going to need it in that section. Being fully powered up really helps. If you're like credit feeding through the game, which you can do, and you're coming into this stage not fully powered up, you're gonna have a rough time, I'll tell you that much. That's where it can get kind of Gradius syndrome. If you're playing for a 1cc, it doesn't really come up, because by the time you get unupgraded enough, it doesn't matter. I think I get clipped. That section clips me every goddamn time, but it's always a different bullet that hits me. It's like a different part of that section. That you just needed to know what was coming, otherwise you're gonna get swarmed. Squeeze through, swap over to the blade spread attack. There's no bullet ceiling in this game, by the way, so you need to make sure not to assume there is. There isn't. You need to just do suppressive fire on these guys. The nice thing, though, is suppressive fire works, right? So there's no bullet ceiling on those missiles that come out of those guys, but they can get canceled by fire, so it's sort of like a bullet seal, but not quite. You need to still have your gun in position. But it's not like Jamestown where... Well, I guess on these little guys, it does happen, but they have a lot less HP. So we gotta swap over, use that front shield. This section is surprisingly like a nice cooldown. It's much easier than the rest of the stage. It's a section coming up into the first boss. I guess they kind of figured, alright, you've been punished enough. Here, let's give you an easy section to end it off. Then just super him, because by the time the boss spawns, you'll be recharged. My biggest criticism of this game, as far as the gameplay, is it is a little indulgent with the pace, to be honest. It does not need to be 43 minutes or 40 minutes long. It has, I think, too many sections of you just kind of hanging out in between patterns. It's not unbearable or anything. It's not unforgivable. And older shmups do this, I noticed. Even, stuff like R-Type, they tend to do this. But I think the game does it a bit too much, especially early game. Late game, it's a little bit more... You can get away with it a bit more. But early game, like stage 1 and stage 2, there's a lot of sections in that game where you're just like kind of flying. It has like cool background effects and everything, but it gets a bit wearing when you're going for a 1cc and you're like just sitting there crawling through that early stage and early patterns. I do wish they kind of sped up stage 1 and stage 2, cut them down, made them a less indulgent in that regard. But nothing critical, nothing horrible or anything. Just, I think, a point of improvement in my book. Here we go. This boss fight's actually a lot of fun. The key to it is making sure you're canceling those red bullets. At least one of them. You cancel one of them and let the other one hit the back wall. That's the idea. Having that shield's really useful. and then you pull, so you cancel one. Okay, now I'm just kind of in a crazy position. There. That was that was some wild dodging. And when it glows green, pull to the bottom, because otherwise you're gonna get nailed. Fun boss fight. So here we go, the final stage, the escape sequence, and the final boss. So you definitely want to make sure to upgrade your shield here. That's what you're going for. You want the shield upgrade, absolutely. Because that's really going to come in handy. And there's a section here that's really nasty. That will get you every time unless you know what's going to happen. So now you're in escape. And I'll show you. It's right up at the beginning here. So you got to pull back from these. And then this one you need to run through. Get over that and then pull back and fire. Because if you try to hang back, those little bungee guys or little platform guys will jump up and hit you. And you can't really stop them. Unless, I guess maybe there's like a super... Maybe you could use the green super to deal with it, now that I think about it. But my tactic is you just fly forward, fly over it. And then once you get over it, you pull back and super, and then you'll be okay. But maybe the green spinning thing will stop them. I don't know. I don't know. This... phase 1 of the boss fight I find surprisingly challenging, even though it's not in practice. In a run, when you're nervous, the damn thing gets me every freaking time. Every run I've done, this stupid thing got me at least once. And usually over dumb things like that, where I'm bullet canceling and then something rams me, or I just get myself in a really ugly position. Oh, that was a clutch dodge. It doesn't look that hard of a pattern, but because of those stupid things, those little options that follow you around and laser you, they are so awkward because you don't know where they're going to land. So sometimes you'll accidentally ram into them. And then they also have this really long wind up on their shot that's so long that it kind of changes you up. It jukes you. Where it lasts so long that you either dodge prematurely and then move back into that shot, or it's so long that you thought it already shot and then you forget it didn't, and then it'll hit you in the face. Both have happened to me. This is, yeah, you have to watch out for that stupid ship ramming you. This is probably one of the harder patterns of the boss fight, actually, the one where it spawns these missiles at the back. For some reason I always challenge those. This one can get real nasty if you know what to do, so don't let it pull you down all the way. You need to follow it back upward, because if you let it pin you down there, which I let it do once, and you're kind of pinned under the ship there, you're in for a rough, nasty time, and then the ship will just drop down on top of you like it does there. So you don't want that. Here we go. My strategy here is use the blue shot and just bullet cancel the one that flies in front of you. That seems to be the most effective way of dealing with it. You can dodge that pattern, and it probably is a good idea if you want to put in damage, but I'm not risking it. I'm just sticking above it. Watch out for the ram. That's one of the main causes of death in this fight for me. It's that stupid ship ramming me. So here we go. Round 2. There we go. Got the... Now we're in the final... There's 2 phases left, but the last phase is actually really easy. So this is sort of the final phase, and I'm looking really solid resource-wise. I don't think I ever did get an extra extend, so it must be at 5 that you get the last extend. I'm sure the options menu tells you. Here we go. Just pull up above it. Again, you can do some damage sitting down in there, but I was like, eh. Watch out for the ram. That pattern right there where he rams you, that's what got me my last run, where I was 1 extend away from clearing. I don't mind, though, because I do like to have such a clean run for the final clear. That there, it's random what the little bullet ladders are gonna do, how they're gonna bend. So I just pull downward mostly, because they usually don't go that far. This pattern here, we're just waiting for it to recharge. Bullet cancel. I was like, come on now. Well-timed super to cancel that pattern. This is a tricky dodge. Just kind of a little bit lucky there, because I couldn't quite remember where it would break, so I just pulled downward as hard as I could. Got clipped there. See, that pattern is one of the harder ones for me to dodge for whatever reason. Here we go. Come on. Super. Cancel those bullets. Cancel that missile. That's what I'm talking about. And then here we go. This last phase is actually really easy, relatively speaking. You just need to use your spread shot here and just kind of, because you'll cancel the red bullets with the spread shot, so that's okay. Just need to be patient, dodge the pink bullets, just continuing to fire with the spread shot. Don't get too hasty and use the super too early, because otherwise you're going to be too low powered and you'll have a difficult time. So you don't get too hasty. Finish them off with the super at the end there. And there is the 1cc clear, and I was very happy, boy, because I was getting frustrated at this point because I had a few runs there where I died on the last boss. And one criticism of the game is that, yes, there is a stage select, which I appreciated and used, but there's no boss select. God damn it, why don't shmup boards have these boss selects? They have stage select, but to get to the final boss, you got to play all the way through stage 6 into stage 7, because they're kind of the same stage, get through it, and then get to the boss. So it takes you a good 5 or so minutes to get to the last boss to practice it anyway. So that's where I kept dying on the last boss, because I couldn't get as much practice on it without really going out of my way. So boss select, please. If they're gonna do an update, I really appreciate that. But yeah, shout outs to this team. Definitely recommend the game. It was a lot of fun. I think you all will really enjoy it. And I hope people realize that, yes, I can play old school shmups and enjoy them. So it wasn't just me being a stinker with R-Type Final 2. I do appreciate old school style shmups as well. They just need to be good. I don't like bad ones. They have to be good. Shout outs to everyone. Please like, subscribe, tell all your friends. I hope you all enjoy these 1cc commentary videos. I enjoy doing them, and I know they're not quite as popular as reviews, but I do like to have the variety and something.
So thank you to the
different.
$5 patrons,
So,
100, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Anthony Iodice, Aaron Solis, Asa Davis, Ben, Borgie 22, Brian Shiver, Chris Yusufovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Cook Some Soup, Corey Mark, Des Audio, Darkwing, Darren Griffin, Delta Tango 6, Disco Star Slayer, DJ 420 Praise It, Eric H, FCK Full Set, Retro Schmupper Housu, Kiwi, J Lab, JB RPG, Jim Knockham, Joe Angelo, John Kelly, Jolts, Game Boy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman 589, Large, Malaise, Mark Toms, Maz, Megadeth 859, Minung, Mechalin, Michael Stern, Mitch LY, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron, Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Philip Mason, Plasmo, Portal 63, Rattlecat, Raoul, Real Skeen, Riff Mason, Rolf, Scanline City, 7 Overdose, Shane Sintiansky, Shmup Junkie, The Boot Rex, The Real Ikuzo, The Dirty Screech, DN1, The Old Benster, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight, and Utakaya. Thanks for watching.